Hello, I'm Melonie at Vancouver Yoga Center in Vancouver, Washington. And this is Shanti. She is one of our teachers here, and she's going to demonstrate some elements of sun salutation. Sun salutation is a basic warm-up exercise that we do in the class. And we just do a very basic version of it. There's many different versions of sun salutation. But there are some parts of it where beginner students get tripped up and have a hard time in the sequence of it. So she's going to demonstrate just one side of the sun salutation so you get the idea of the sequence and the flow that we're doing. And then we're going to go through bits and pieces within the sun salutation and work on them a little bit more. So I'll have you at the top of your mat. Okay, so that's one side of the sun salutation. So let's stop at certain phases of the sun salutation. So let's stop at we'll go into it until you get to the lunge. Okay, so most beginner students are a little stiffer in the hips and the legs, so they'll often take a shorter stride. All of that shorter stride also pushes them more into their front knee, into their front foot. So you might see their knee go over their foot a little bit more, or their depth that they're trying to get in the lunge, they end up going at the knee. So we'll make sure that their knee is more in line with their ankle, and then try to take the back leg back to get a deeper lunge in this pose. So that's kind of a basics there. Not everybody will be able to keep their hands down, and I actually prefer them not to have their hands down. I like that the hands are up to give one clearance. And just, it's a little integration from the wrists all the way up through the arms. When we push our hands to the floor, we kind of disconnect out of the shoulder socket. So this brings us up more into the shoulder socket. And then from here, we go into plank pose. And plank pose, well, let's just do what a normal beginner would do often, is too short of a stance again. So she comes in a little closer. When she comes in a little closer, it throws everything more forward, which means she's going to have to be stronger in her upper body to be able to lower down to the ground. So she's strong and she can, but most will get to a certain point and they'll just collapse. They'll just drop to the floor. So that's super common. So let's come back into our plank pose. And so if we had a short stride, show them what short stride is, everything goes forward, then we would walk our feet back, longer back, get our shoulders in line with our wrists, and then we'll either lower like our center of our heart and sternum, kind of like where you'd have a necklace pendant, but a little bit lower down your heart, straight in line with your thumbs, all the way to the floor. Now, you still need some strength for that in your plank pose. So if you haven't developed that yet, you might take this next stage. So she's going to come back into plank pose. She's got her long stride already, and she's going to set the knees down. And then we do want to build some strength in this upper part of the body. So instead of letting the pelvis lead the way, sinking forward, right, and collapsing in her lower back, we're going to try to keep the butt a little lifted, just a little bit, and then lower down the heart right between the thumbs again, just to build that upper body strength. So those will be some tricks in your plank to the floor. And then Cobra comes next. We'll talk about Cobra in another tutorial, but there is a curvature, natural curvature that we're wanting in Cobra pose. But if from the transitioning of Cobra to downward dog, people will get a lot of compressive forces in their lower back. So we lower out with the heart first, and then we come into more of a child's pose. We veer the weight back, and then we lift up into downward dog. Opposed to, let's come back to plank pose, all the way to the floor, however you get there. Got your little bit of Cobra up. Now if she came from Cobra pose into downward dog here, curl of the toes, lift up. There's a point where there's lots of pressure at the lower back as she comes up. So it can be very uncomfortable for some people if they're not very strong in their back. And then the hardest part of all for the whole series for most people is bringing that back foot forward. So bring it back up between your hands. So for a beginner student, it would land a little bit more here, and often on the toes with the heel lifted. And again, the vector points of pressure going out through the knee. Yeah. So what you can do when you're here is either bring the foot up with one hand where you want it to go and teach it where to go, right? Or bring it back, keep it there because we're often not in this for very long, and then take the other foot to match it, and then make your way all the way back up. So those are the two quick bits. But there's other tricks to getting that foot up there, because there's things that we need to build, strength that we need to build, hip flexibility that we need to build, whole body integration that we need to build to bring that leg back up to the top. So let's come back to our downward dog. So one of the biggies is where we take our head. So if we're looking down at our toes, this often will kind of block, it creates like a stop sign. So if you were to keep looking at your toes and want to bring your foot forward, try to do that. Right? It often stops movement here, and we don't get very far. But if she looks forward, this is also creating like an open gate right here that she's able to then move everything forward into that space. So looking forward is a key part. I'll even say often just like look way beyond your yoga mat, and you'll be surprised at how the urge is so strong to look at the toes. So we'll go back to our downward dog. So that was one, the look forward. If you have enough flexibility and balance, you might take the front hand away. So you bring your foot and take the hand away. I call it the bowling method. She swings the arm and touches back down. That was a little for flair. Try it one more time so the foot goes back. So you don't really need the one hand. The one hand goes away, and your foot has all this clearance to draw forward, and then it touches back down. So if you feel like your balance is good enough, you could try that version. And then go back to our downward dog. And get the hips really high. Lift onto the tiptoes. So that's one. You could try to use more momentum. Maybe she swings the leg up and then swings that forward. That's one way. Go back to our downward dog. And then we wanted to take the whole body with us. If we're getting all that momentum, again, we don't want to just leave this here and operate from our foot, but we want to take the whole of our body. So foot goes, hips go, heart goes, everything goes. So show them what it would be like, again, if they didn't move the body. They just tried moving the foot. They're going to get stuck, right? Yeah. So we want hips to go, core to go, heart to go, everything to go forward with us. And then last one, go back. And to get more clearance, we round this back. So our hips are high, we're bringing our foot in, we curve our back, and we come all the way to the top of the mat. That's a lot of tips and tricks for the lunge portions. Come back up to the top, and her one side got really worked out, and all the way back up to stand. So, hope you enjoyed this tutorial. There'll be more, and you can visit us on our website at vancouveryogacenter.com and our Facebook page, and we'll hope to see you soon.